Hello, and welcome to the Guilbault Girls Show, where you will have the opportunity to hear from mothers, fathers, siblings, and individuals themselves about their journey of living with a disability. I know, it's called Guilbault Girls, but we have a bonus for you as we get the Guilbault boys to interview some of the dads and siblings and get their perspectives too. We'll also have special guests from time to time to share the many resources that are available to those living with a disability and their families. So get ready to laugh, smile, cry, maybe even get a little angry when you hear some of these stories of their day-to-day struggles. But let's not forget their many triumphs. As they say, it takes a village. And if it weren't for our village, we wouldn't be where we are today. So join us. Hello, and welcome back to the Guilbault Girls, another episode. I know, I always say it's called the Guilbault Girls, but I did promise you that I would now and again have some guests on our show, which is my husband, Jesse. Jesse, say hi.
Hello.
So we wanted to do a joint episode with friends of ours. So we can touch on just our different experiences and get the dad's take, because so many times I feel like the dads kind of get left out and aren't as heard as much. Whether that's on school level, whether that's on friend level, I don't know. I just feel like we need to bring out the opinions and share resources and stories of the fathers. So welcome, Kim and Ryan. Thank you for being on. I wanted to ask you guys, first and foremost, tell us a little bit about your family dynamic, how many kids you have, what ages they are, and what your daughter's diagnosis is.
Okay, we have two daughters, Ellianna, who is 16, and Faith, who's 13. We've been married, it'll be 18 years coming up this July. And Ellianna is our daughter who has cerebral palsy. And, so that's been our lives navigating that, up to this point.
And I actually, we were interviewing Billy from Billy Footwear earlier, and we were talking about the documentary, and he was asking about the girls, that part where they were sitting on the couch and having the interviews with one another. And I was telling him how we met. So for anybody that would like to know, Ryan actually teaches and is a special ed teacher at Face Old Middle School. But I had joined Faith into a acting class, which was supposed to be for beginners, which it really wasn't. But we walked in and Ellie's sitting there, and then all of a sudden Ryan said hi to Faith and said, "How you doing?" And I'm like, and then we went to go to the bathroom. I'm like, who was that? And then lo and behold, we all became friends. And fast forward a little bit. So that's kind of how we know each other. So tell me, how did you discover that Ellie had a disability, and how did it make you feel? So was it when you had, like with Faith, when I had her, she was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and they said, okay, she has periventricular leukomalacia, and she has an 85% chance of having cerebral palsy, and within 6 months she was diagnosed. So kind of what was your start and beginning, and how you found out, and how did it make you feel?
Well, it wasn't something we found out necessarily. It happened. So we knew from the get-go that there was going to be complications. I thought I was ready to have my baby, had a perfectly healthy pregnancy. All went smoothly. Had a little bleeding, thought, okay, it's time. She was full term. Went to the hospital, and everything was fine. They were actually saying I wasn't far enough along. They were going to send me home. But they said, we'll monitor you for a couple more minutes and just see how things go. But you probably can go back home. You don't want to be at the hospital this long. You're really not advanced far enough along to have the baby. So in that few minutes, all of a sudden there was just a flurry of nurses and doctors. And this just, it was palpable, the concern in the room. And I couldn't understand, because I thought we were going home, and all of a sudden they're shifting monitors around my belly trying to find a heartbeat. Like, I guess, maybe the initial thought was just like they lost it somehow, something shifted, but they could no longer find a heartbeat. So I went from going to be, go home, wait a little bit longer, get a little further along, to we can't find this baby's heartbeat. So from that point on, I'm rushed into a crash cesarean. So I didn't even know what that was, but it's a cesarean section for to deliver a baby who had no heartbeat. And I'm just being wheeled back into an OR. I can't even comprehend what's happening, and they put me under, fully anesthetized me, which in retrospect, I'm so glad for, because I'm glad I didn't have to see her come out dead and then working on her. So I was spared that. I always felt bad for Ryan because he's sitting outside of the OR wondering what's happening. He's awake and cognizant of this whole emergency going down. So you can probably share how you felt sitting outside of that room in a moment, about that. But so after Ellie was born, they spent 13 minutes resuscitating her. She'd already been without a heartbeat between 10 and 20 minutes from the time before she was delivered. So without oxygen, very long time. I was told by a nurse they usually work 10 minutes to resuscitate, but they continued working, did finally establish a heartbeat, and she was then sent to Johns Hopkins NICU. And was in the most critical bed in the Hopkins NICU. And so to fast forward a little bit, we would attend, parent meetings about her progress. And it's a very long story, but
no. And take your time.
They told us, she had, okay. So, she's at Hopkins, the most critical bed, the most critical, baby, has severe brain damage because she was without oxygen so long. And,
the swelling of the brain and, a lot of gray matter. And, initially they didn't know. Her face was so swollen. Her eyes just didn't have, and they were just flush with her forehead to her cheek. And, initially, like you said, going back to the upper Chesapeake, you get the news you're going to be going home, come back another time. From there it was God's presence, because, we were there an extra 5 minutes. The nurses from the nurses station come running back in, and they're hooking up the fetal monitors and the ultrasound. And I saw the last beat of Ellie's heart, just boom. And then it's flatline. And from there, they're wheeling the bed. And, it was a Saturday night, so it's
and it was July 4th weekend.
Yeah, July 4th, July 2nd.
She was born July 2nd, but it was over the holiday weekend.
Yeah.
So luckily, there had been a scheduled cesarean earlier in the day, so the anesthesiologist was already there. The room was used and cleaned and prepped for the next one to come in. Like, everybody who needed to be there was there. Her normal OB was there, and had met us there initially. So when they went to the crash cesarean, I remember just walking with the bed, not knowing if I'm going to have my wife or my child, just like what's happening here. And I can just remember looking down and praying the hardest I've ever prayed, and I just, when people would talk to me, I remember shoes, not faces, because my head was just down in prayer. And you just, you say you're defeated. You just kind of, you just like, can't take that news face to face sometimes, so I can remember the anesthesiologist had these brown wingtip shoes, and he came out, and I said, I hope the best for your family and your daughter. Nurses came out and gave us updates on Kimberly, gave me updates on Kimberly and Ellie, and then they were saying, they called Hopkins to transport her down to Hopkins, and the Hopkins came up with an ambulance and not the medevac, because from what I was told later, they didn't think that she would survive the transport. So they didn't send a helicopter because they didn't think that she was gonna make it long. And
there was some controversy because Hopkins felt Upper Chesapeake spent too long trying to resuscitate her, and felt that she should have just been called a time of death after 10 minutes. But, Upper Chesapeake didn't give up on her and just kept working. And so they had to take her at this point. And, when you sit in a family meeting room with the nurses, the neonatologists, the doctors, and they're telling you if your child survives, she's going to have profound disability. She may not hear, she may not see, may not, have any cognition really. I mean, just profoundly disabled. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I just pray she has enough there that she knows she's loved, no matter what. If she's deaf or blind or can't walk, just let there be enough there to know that she's a loved child and she feels love. So that was never, it was never a, oh, wow, we think our child might have a disability. It was, our child is profound from the start, and anything, every day is a new day, and where will she go? We don't know. But it was never this, do you think our child has some delays? No. It was, right.
Global neurologic devastation is what they said. You couldn't speak. We've done, our families, Kimberly was still in the hospital up here, so she obviously couldn't go down for the first couple of days. Right. But Ellie was born at 7:44 at night. We get down to Hopkins at 1 a.m. because it's, they need time to get up here and then get down there and get her stabilized and get her, you can't talk around. There's no stimulation at all around the child.
Yeah, I tried to touch her when I finally got to see her. They're like, don't touch her. Nope. That could further her brain damage. I couldn't even, because there could be no movement or stimulation. And one memory that is so seared in my memory is that when I was laying in the hospital bed and they told me, oh, you had a girl, because we didn't find out the sex priorhand. And I remember I was so groggy coming in out of anesthesia, and I'm like, oh, she's okay. She's okay. And everyone was so mournful looking. And I realized I was like, oh, this is really bad. And the driver of the ambulance to the NICU transport, his face was so somber. And I just remember seeing his face and how sad it was. And I thought, this is really, really serious. It was like, I couldn't even describe how shocked we were by everything. And it was just, so it was like, to answer the question, it was not discovering if she would have a disability. Right, it was just, right away. Where will she go from here?
So how long was it before you got to actually take her out and hold her?
Oh, it was
5 days. 5 days. And holding her meant that's the first time that she had her first bowel movement. So me holding her was lifting her up on the table so that the nurse could change her. So they had everything getting pumped out. And so the holding her was literally just having that little wool blanket under her back and holding her in my hands for a minute while they, changed her.
And we had to wear the yellow gowns, like the hazmat suits, in order to hold her to prevent any infection. And then when I would hold her, and she had all these leads and lines and IVs and tubes, it was so cumbersome to hold her because you didn't want to dislodge any of the leads that were monitoring her vitals. And so it was very stiff, and this was our first child. So I had no context of holding your newborn baby, that was my first time holding, a child. We didn't have previous children. So how complex it was to hold her and then wonder what's life going to be for this little baby. And she came through so much already, just let her make it, just pleading with God, just let her make it and know she's loved.
And you have all the specialists. So, the first thing that came in was the cardiologist came, oh, her heart's all right. And then you get the lungs are all right, the respiratory, and those are all right. And then you talk about some other organs, and those are all right. And then the thing that wasn't was the brain, that lack of oxygen to the brain. And I can remember the neurologist. We'd have these family meetings, and I was so frustrated because you kind of want some definitiveness. What's it going to be? And I remember him saying, everybody so far was, you're going to have some profound disabilities. It's going to be a long journey, yada yada. And I remember Dr. Singer saying, we'll just have to wait and see. And I remember being so frustrated, like this wait and see thing. But I'm so glad that he did that in retrospect, because he didn't set a ceiling for us. Exactly. Wait and see, and that's kind of what we did. And, to see now.
He used the term plasticity. The brain's ability to create new neural pathways. So that to me was a glimmer of hope. We're going to read to well, we would have read to our child anyway, but in the NICU, she has got severe brain damage, and I'm holding little books up, just turning pages so she can see color and shapes, just trying to stimulate, her brain. I'm like, we're going to build those pathways for this baby.
Some of the nurses were upset. We hung a mobile up above her bed, and they're like, "Why are you hanging a mobile up for your child?" That wasn't.
It was a neonatologist.
Oh, it was a neonatologist who said that. Yeah, and they got upset that we hung a little mobile so she could see, and
because she said she couldn't see it, and I said, well, and they were also very blunt, too. But rightfully so, because she couldn't swallow her own spit. She had to be constantly suctioned.
Right.
She, the only really function she had was startle. She had a startle reflex, but she couldn't swallow. She couldn't suck. She was tube fed through the nose. And eventually they put a peg in her stomach, and she was tube fed through that. She was released at 4 weeks.
Right. We were lucky, blessed, whatever it be. Being a teaching hospital, the neonatologists rotate out on the different rotations. So the one, you go from the teaching rotation into the actual clinical rotation so about 2 weeks in, another doctor rotated onto our case and into the NICU. And he said, well, have they tried different medications to thicken up her secretions? And we're like, no, no, we know nothing about this. So he put her on some medications to thicken up, and she was able to manage her sucking and swallow, her secretions. So she wasn't choking all the time on that. So our experience with one of the neonatologists was different than the others. The one was very much, I would say Dr. Doom, but it was all the negatives. And then this other one was like, well, let's try this and let's do this. And through that, we got moved out of that critical bed, still in the NICU, but we got moved into more of when they saw the family involvement, into more of a single room where we could be. And and then at 4 weeks, they're like, well, we're going to send her home. We'll show you how to insert her nasal feeding tube if she were to pull it out, which was terrifying because you can puncture a lung putting that in. And we were like, oh my gosh, we're taking home this baby who, it was just such a whirlwind. She had then at 5 weeks had to come back to get the feeding tube surgery in her stomach because they said she wouldn't have the ability to chew or swallow food. So she got that. And then a week later, with the blessing of her pediatrician, I tried breastfeeding her because I'd been pumping, and my pediatrician's like, look, you don't need a swallow study. If she chokes, help her get it up, but it won't hurt to give it a try. So at 6 weeks, I tried nursing her, and she took to it. She started breastfeeding and was thriving off breast. Like, she coordinated this child who couldn't swallow her own spit just weeks before was coordinating the suck, swallow, all that goes into breastfeeding, which is hard for even typically, neurotypical babies to coordinate all that and can't breastfeed. She learned to breastfeed, and she grew. And by 5 months of age, they pulled the feeding tube out because she didn't need it. She was, she went from, completely neurologically devastated to coordinating the ability to breastfeed. And she did that, for 14 months. And when they sent us home, they said we should have gone to Mount Washington to, because she was still, being fed to the NG tube. And they said, go home. And essentially after she started breastfeeding, we used the pump, the medical device, just to pump the medication. She was on phenobarbital for her, because she had some seizures after birth there because of the neurological issues going on. So, but we just used that really at nighttime to feed, do the phenobarbital, with her. And sometimes at night, we do the feedings overnight. But for the most part, she did well with the eating. They let us do after about 6 days, they started letting us do, or maybe 7, whatever it is, some kangaroo care, when we got into our own private room, you let them do the, and that's where, you develops a lot of that, and that skin to skin contact. And our nurses were absolutely wonderful. And we still have contact with the nurses.
Both Upper Chesapeake and Hopkins. We have and we can talk about that later. The what that has actually turned into. So
yeah. I definitely want to hear about that because I saw you post about that. How much did she weigh when she was born?
And the nurses,
7 pounds. So
she was a giant in the NICU. She was a full term baby.
Okay.
7 pounds. Yeah.
They didn't weigh her. They did. They estimate she's about 7 pounds. She was full term, so she was normal. The
nurses actually fought over getting to hold her. When it's because the NICU is so many tiny, fragile babies.
Right.
When overnight they would argue it's my turn to hold her because a big baby to hold. But weight actually came. They didn't weigh her initially, and then it was always in kilograms when they would put it on her chart. I'm like, I didn't have a phone to convert kilograms to pounds, and so I was like, I don't even know what she weighs, but so she was a good size. So she had that to her advantage, her size.
When you talked about that it was 5 days to hold her, so with our son, he was 2.5 pounds and he was in the NICU just under 2 months. So I didn't get to hold him at first, and all I did with him, they whisked him away. With her, at least I got to put my hand in the incubator and touch her hand. But with him, it was 3 days before. I think because you held him 3 days. I got to hold him at 3 days old, but you weren't in the hospital. You were working. So it was 5 days for him. For me. And it was about an 1.5 to 2 hour drive. This is when we lived in Florida. So down to St. Pete, into All Children's. And so basically I would go in the morning and then get back. And then he would go down for the nighttime feeding and stuff. And when you talk about the hanging the mobile, it's it seems like a totally different experience. But then again, you already had that diagnosis of, but still, even so, they may not see it, but they can hear it and they know it. And I know you had commented in around Christmas time, I had posted a picture that we came in and the NICU nurses took it. And it was the very first bottle that he ever got because he had the feeding tube, and then we got to hold it in the syringe, and you hold it up as it goes down in, and then when he had his first bottle, the nurses actually saved that bottle and wrote, JD, his name and the date. It was when his first bottle was, and hung it up as a Christmas gift. So then we did the same thing for, with Faith too. So, but that kind of took me back. I completely
that was really special.
Yeah.
And the Dr. Doom thing, because we
said the
exact same thing when they came in, and there was a lot of this is going to have this is bad, and that was Dr. Doom right there, But it's funny to hear, not funny, but that someone that same comparison, Dr. Doom came in and crushed some things on you.
I think that the part of why I wanted. Go ahead. And the thing
and that's there was such definitive on her part that's what you're she was very adamant that this is what it's going to be. And if she gets out of this hospital, she's going to need to be in an institution. You're not going to be able to go to the bathroom and leave her alone because she's going to choke on her. And then a week later, they're talking about discharging and what's our discharge plan?
It was a whirlwind.
And it was and it's scary as heck because here you are with all of this going in your head going, how am I going to care for this child? But it came, and it was beautiful. And I think, we made a comment to the nurse that, the nurses were with Ellie 24/7. The nurses were there for the ins, the outs, the goods, the bads. They were there when all of the attendings and all of the different students were there doing their assessments, and they saw her reactions. The doctor's reading it on a chart, doing a quick 3-minute assessment and kind of synthesizing what's going on. But the nurses were like, well, this is what we saw.
Yep. I think another reason why
I know you know this too, that.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just saying, you hold on just the slightest little hope, the slightest little, hope. It just, you would cling to it. Out of, just this desperate clinging to just the slightest, Ellie turned her head today. She turned her head. She made a little whimper today. Everything was just amplified. when there was some iota of progress.
Yep. I think one of the reasons too why I wanted to start this show is to share stories like this too, because, and I said in my trailer part how, when having a child with a disability and you get these, diagnoses and, you feel scared and alone and like what, the what ifs and the what, what's going to happen. And, and I really learned a lot through the people that have gone before me. So just sharing these stories, hopefully will help others be like, there is light at the end of this, you're going to have your ups, you're going to have your downs, but, just keep going, you can do it, but just bringing, I guess, hope to people. And then with
and that's kind of where,
go ahead.
I was just going to say the same thing with you. And one of the special educators who Faith had at Southampton went through it a few years after we went through it. And like you said, the fact that I could be there and kind of navigate, help them talk through, and Kimberly as well, some of those things, hey, this is what you can expect. And just being there for them to listen or as a resource or whatever else. And look at where we are now 2 years out. And it looks very dire right now, but look at what it could be.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me skip for that for a minute. So after you had her and everything, and it was time that, you were going to have your second daughter, like, did you question? Because I know I questioned. I mean, it took us, finally, it was 4 years. They have a 4-year difference, but it took a long time for me to say, I really want another kid. They always say, every pregnancy is different. Like, how did you guys go about wanting to have another child? And, how were your fears? Because I know I was scared, or did they even say this, was this something rare that happened with Ellie, or could this repeat itself, or?
Yeah. My doctor didn't think it was something that would repeat itself. It was, for lack of a better word, like a fluke type thing, a very serious fluke, but he didn't anticipate that happening. We had trouble conceiving our daughter Faith because, I think honestly in my heart, I was just still reeling from anxiety, and, Ellie still wasn't walking yet. And, she made tremendous progress. And I can share more about that, later. She was doing remarkably well, but there still were concerns. Mm-hmm. And so I think the weight of that and just the trauma of her birth experience and being in the NICU, I think just shut my hormones down.
Yep.
So it took a year and a half to conceive Faith. But I felt incredible peace that everything would be okay with her. And I felt that, it wouldn't happen again. And I was closely monitored. But then we had a terrible fright in Faith. When I was pregnant with Faith, we had the typical, 17 weeks, you have that big sonogram, like where you can find out the sex. We didn't, again, we wanted to be surprised. And I go and have the sonogram, and I get a call later from a doctor saying, there's cysts on your baby's brain, which can indicate trisomy 18, trisomy 21, things that are incompatible with life beyond, a year. This could be very serious, genetic anomaly.
That was Friday about 4:45.
Yeah.
So, you had nothing's available on the weekend. Mm-hmm. So you're reeling all weekend.
So I'm like, here we go again. Here we go. It was just it was devastating to have that happen. It was like a totally different thing from what happened. Ellie was, oxygen supply cut off. Something happened in utero to cut off that lifeline. This was a genetic thing, right. A different thing altogether, but equally devastating. So we had to wait to get an appointment for a more detailed sonogram. And I got a blood test. I initially refused blood tests before because I'm like, what difference does it make? I would never terminate a pregnancy. What'll be. So, right. But I did get that genetic, like that blood test that can indicate if there's. So that came back, results were good, like everything looked good. So that was a little measure of peace. And then we had that sonogram at Sinai Hospital, and everything looked great. But there was like a 2-week period of just like, how am I gonna, this baby might not survive. I had another baby who was on the line. Like, God, how, we're a faithful Christian. And I know that's an immature view of your faith when you start saying, I've been really good and we've been faithful. You better come through for us. I know that's terrible.
You're bargaining. That's called bargaining.
Yes. Yeah. And bargaining is wrong, and it's so wrong and so awful. But
you're human. Go ahead.
It's human nature. So I started the whole bargaining thing all over, and knowing God's will often does not, align with our own. And I know that cognitively, but at the time, I'm raising my fist like, God, it was just so. But after that, and all that got cleared up, then I don't know, I did feel like pretty good, like they monitored me. I was at the hospital getting tests they were really just on it, had a planned C-section. They waited. So I didn't go quite, to 40 weeks. I guess, was it 38 and a half, it's 39. Yep. So they did it a little late enough that everything's developed, but early enough so we don't push it,
And the same doctor and same 2 nurses who delivered Ellie, were there to deliver Faith. Yeah. And the 2 nurses who delivered Ellie, the one did the compressions and one did the bagging. So they both scheduled to be on that day and were there when she was delivered.
Yeah, like a happy reunion.
Right. So amazing. That was a comfort to us because we had seen those nurses and that doctor for the 3 years.
And they didn't give up on Ellie. I felt like, if Ellie had been born anywhere else, to any other staff, I think she would have been allowed to perish and or not been revived.
Right.
But the fact that they just didn't give up on her, and we see where she came from, all that,
Right. And go ahead and share that story. No better than time now. We're talking about the nurses, so go ahead and tell me that story. Share with us.
So we still keep a relationship with nurses both at Hopkins and at Upper Chesapeake, but particularly with Upper Chesapeake. One of the nurses who was there, and helped with Ellie's delivery, has just always been touched by Ellie's case. It's just been something that's just been really, I'm trying to
kind of I would say the highlight or the peak of her career, where she has felt probably the most, I don't know,
edified in her career, and to just have such a critical baby, such a hopeless case at the time. And I'll say something about that a little later, a hopeless case thing. Her alma mater is Salisbury University. So she established a scholarship for a college nursing student. And it's in Ellianna's name. So she can share Ellianna's story to the nurse who I'm getting goosebumps.
I'm like, look, you can see them, and my hair sticking up. He's like trying to hold back tears and stuff. Go ahead. He's like, why are you having me on these podcasts and YouTube shows? Because you guys are very important. All right, go ahead. I got to get some tissues. Go ahead.
She established a scholarship in Ellianna's honor, and it's, called the Andreen Scholarship, and it'll go to a nursing student, and her story will continue on. And it's a story of not giving up. Just keep trying. Don't give up. And I remember in the NICU, one of the nurses who I've lost contact with, Nancy. Mm-hmm. She was so compassionate, and a true angel at Hopkins NICU. She was the first one to let me hold Ellie. And anyway, she said, whenever we have a hopeless case, we say, remember baby Andreen, remember baby girl Andreen when we have a hopeless case. So she's touched a lot of people in the medical field and just given a reason for, their
and I just want to interject. I just want to interject too, because I know when Faith's documentary was on, Ellie was talking about, how she doesn't like the word people say she's an inspiration.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, and that's true.
She is, and Billy and I were touching on that too, and Faith, because you're an inspiration because, and that was the word that it just kept coming back to my mind, was hope. You know what I mean? And just to see how hard they pushed through and don't give up. can inspire somebody. And if that can inspire someone, and I try to like think of a different word that I could use other than like inspiration, but I'm like, but there's no other word, you know, because if you can lift somebody
I agree.
up,
I use the word.
Yeah, like it's, you know, she really is a gift from God, you know, and everything happens for a reason.
Well, and that's what I remember a couple weeks after Ellie was born, and someone had sent us that the name meanings, and that's kind of what the meaning of Ellianna, which we didn't know at the time,
means my God has answered.
Oh my gosh.
But we didn't know that. We didn't know that when we named her that. I just thought it was a pretty name that no former students I ever taught had that.
Right.
So we liked it. But yeah, so it was just, you know.
And it's something I thought about, like you're saying, how they're.
It's okay, talk.
How they're an inspiration for other people. They might not realize it.
Yeah.
What she went through and passed on to those nurses. And what they passed on to other people saying, don't give up on these kids. Maybe how many lives she saved or impacted.
Because of that.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things, and again, this is all, I'm gonna say hearsay, but when Ellie was worked on, resuscitated for 13 minutes, you know, at the time, like that 14 minute time was like that, you have to call it, you know. And Upper Chesapeake really came down on the doctors and the nurses who worked on Ellie and basically instituted a 10-minute, you know, after that, from what, you know, we were told is that, you know, and if that's the case, and if it's, you know, the Ellie would have been, they said it, let go, you know, and like you said, you want to inspire, you want to have the, you know, give more chances, more opportunities to more families, but it was kind of the opposite from, you know, from what I understood, you know, at Upper Chesapeake. And
how long did you have to go to like for therapies and stuff? So she had to have OT, PT, speech, all of that, correct?
Yeah. Infants and toddlers would come to our house and provided PT and OT services.
And we would head to Kennedy Krieger.
And we went to Kennedy Krieger initially too. And then at age 3, because she did not have speech delay or cognitive delay, she lost OT and PT. In order to get OT, PT services, you have to have cognitive or speech delay, which was very frustrating because she did have some, you know, significant motor delay issues. And it, you know, it followed her into school. It was so frustrating because she was a successful student cognitively. She lost services to help with fine motor. Right. You know, now everybody really, you know, looked after her and supported her. So I can't say enough positive things, but the rule itself that fine motor and gross motor have to be related to those deficits in speech and cognition was frustrating as a parent, you know. So we sought out private OT and private PT through Pediatric Mobility in Forest Hill. Cannot say enough positive things about pediatric mobility.
Awesomeness. Yes. Shout out to Jessica.
Jessica Meyer, fantastic. So encouraging, so wonderful with Ellie. I just adore Jessica. Really helped us. And thank God we have great insurance that, you know, we only had to pay like $20 copays. You know, I can't imagine if we didn't have insurance coverage, you know, would that have been possible?
But, you know, at the time where that was, you know, we were still going to Kennedy. She got physical therapy through Kennedy. She got OT through Kennedy Krieger. It was just tough to go into the city and tough to, you know, do all that. And up in Hartford County, there wasn't a whole lot at the time. And when we heard about pediatric mobility and Jessica just kind of really coming up,
she was in a closet at aquaculture, basically, like a small closet of a room at aquaculture swim school before she moved to that other location. And just, you know, and just her encouragement, you know, for us as parents with her and the positivity, she helped get her into SMOs for her feet to straighten because her ankles caved in to help straighten them out. And she really connected us with that, got Ellie from being really overpronated to perfect foot position through orthotics and therapy, which, you know, is incredible. So those therapies were really essential. And then she loves, No, she
No?
has no need. She got out of them kindergarten time.
Okay.
So she no longer needed them and has, corrected that. But we put her in swim lessons because she loved water. Couldn't get enough, would go underwater, crazy kid. Like all the other babies are screaming and she's like, go underwater. She benefited from just being in water. Like, so it wasn't a formal therapy, but we made sure she went to swim from the time she was 6 months. At the therapy pool where it was nice and warm at Arena Club, and we just kept finding places to keep her involved in swimming.
We did that, and we did therapeutic horseback riding.
Oh yeah, I forgot all about that.
Did you do it at CTR?
Over 18 months till when Faith was born. We say it again.
Did you have her do therapeutic horseback riding?
We did it over at
Chesapeake Riding Therapy.
We did it at Freedom Hills over in
in Cecil County. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So he was on and Ellie and Kim were on when they did the extreme makeover over there. You guys were on the episode, over there.
Yep. Faith went there when she was a year and a half. We used to go there.
Yeah. Okay. So the physical therapist we had worked with had said, through infants and toddlers was in she lives in the community. She was friends with our pastor at the time. Really, and she would go over with us and, do some sidewalking and help with the different exercises.
And she volunteered her time. Right. She was not being paid for that. And she volunteered her time to come over and walk side by side with Ellie on the horse and everything.
Yeah. So we did the old barn, and then we did some of the new barn when it was made over. And, Lisa came over and, worked on things because Ellie was really, that core. It was, without her walking, needed all that. And, she couldn't roll over when she was little. We had to do a lot.
No, she rolled over. She couldn't sit up.
She couldn't sit up.
She rolled over. She just couldn't crawl or really sit up. Yeah. She rolled everywhere and scooted on her back.
She had a bald spot on the back of her head because she just scooted
everywhere. So she found a way to get around, even if it was unorthodox, but she found a way to do it. But by 3, she began to walk and so forth. We also had her put her in dance class, and that, even though it's not therapy, was therapeutic for her to participate in dance classes. And Havre de Grace Dancers was fantastic at integrating her into their dance program and, working with her and giving her an opportunity to dance with them. She still does dance with them.
That's so awesome. She does so many things. Just share a little bit of the different things that she does. Because she how many instruments can she play?
Okay. Well, she plays piano and trumpet, and she's working on ukulele now, but she plays piano in the Havre de Grace Jazz Ensemble, drum major of the marching band, so she conducts the marching band. She does stand-up paddle boarding, which is amazing because I can't stand on a paddle board, but Ellie can pop herself up on a paddle board. The dance, she's involved with speech and debate team at school.
Yeah, she's won several awards too.
Golf team.
She
she won a Ben Carson scholarship, for academic work, does a lot of community service activities too, plays music at church, very involved at church. So she's involved in a lot of activities, and she likes to be involved. She's never like, oh, do I have to do that? She's always, she likes going for hikes. Here's this child who, didn't walk till 3, didn't have a best prognosis at birth, and here she'll go, hike 4 miles and not complain once,
And there's still the motor issues, and there's still the, but, we'll hike. She has the hiking poles, and, we'll go for walks, and she's learned to, knows what her limits are, and really even breaking through those limits sometimes.
She likes to fish. She's a good little fisherman. She'll have a fish and not realize she has a fish. They're like, oh, you've got a fish, and she gets excited reeling the fish in.
That is awesome.
And I think I remember back, she was 7, and there was a camp, Loser Training Wheels. And the cutoff was 8. You needed to be 8. She wasn't going to turn 8 for a little bit longer, and I called the lady who would run the Partners for Success at the time, and she said, well, let me talk to people who run it, and she got in, and just being able to ride a bicycle at 8, that gives you a little bit of and it was on the rollers, and it wasn't independent then. It took us, another year after
Yeah.
that before it really became a little more independent. But, having the modifications on the bicycle and just kind of being introduced to the people who could adapt and could help you know the ways to help a child. So,
and now she can do a 20-mile bike ride. We did a 20-mile bike ride on the
Wow.
NCR trail last year. And so she's a trooper in that, I mean, we've addressed her issues and needs with her disabilities, but at the same time, we've also been like, you have cerebral palsy, but it doesn't have you. And let's just go about our lives and live life and not say, oh, you have this problem, so you can't do this. But let's go live. I'm not going to let this hold you back. Yes, you have it, but it's not consuming us.
Exactly. Absolutely. So actually that's that was actually really good advice, because I was going to ask too if there was any advice that you could give someone going through a similar situation. What would be something that you would tell them? What advice would you give them?
I think don't put the limits on yourself, and just be as you were. And I think a lot of times, people would do for Ellie because they were scared that she couldn't do, or they would pity her, or they would feel bad that maybe it was harder for her to do. And that's not helping them out. They need those independent skills. She needed that to be pushed so that she can have that. And it's easier for me to take something from the table to the kitchen, but I'm not always going to be there to do that for her, and
like even today with her soup bowl, taking it from the dining table to the kitchen, and it's hard. Her hands tremor. She has a hard time carrying a soup bowl, and soup's splashing out, and it's, I just let it splash out and, just said, come clean up what splashed out. But it would have been so much easier for me to pick it up and take it in the kitchen and not have splashing out. But it's like she's, needs to be able to do these things and have opportunities to practice their skills and learn compensatory strategies.
Right.
And she does. She'll hold things against her to steady her hands, but but that can be frustrating, and because you just hate for simple things to be hard. Right. For her like that. So that's been a challenge.
Yeah, and that's one of those things you look at when you buy those tasks. How can we do a task analysis to see, how can we break this down to get you those skills to be able to do it? Or just, knowing, hey, if I'm spilling soup the whole way into the kitchen, getting that paper towel and cleaning it up so I'm not going to be slipping on it on the way back. And and it's not funny, but it's just ironic that here you have a child who has trouble carrying a bowl of soup from the kitchen, dining room into the kitchen. We're teaching her how to drive a car. She has an adaptive, we have
did you get it adapted?
So that she turned 16, and that's something that she do. So we got the car adapted, and have the left foot gas pedal that you can clip in and do that. And for hands that tremor when she does things, when she's holding that steering wheel, she's good. And there's a girl who has some spatial awareness issues and some attention issues that but when she's in the car, we've driven probably 90 hours together, over the last year, or over the last 6 months, 8 months, whatever it is. And she's doing magnificently. It's going to be delayed. She's not going to get her license, right away. You still have adaptive driving lessons to go through, 2 more lessons to go through, and then practice after that. But that, being hooked up with the person out in Frederick, who can teach her those skills, and then him referring us to the people out in Hagerstown. And again, it's just sometimes tough to find these adaptive places. We're driving to Frederick for driving lessons, we're driving to Hagerstown to get the car adaptive, so it's not right in our backyard. And so that's, I guess, makes it tough, but that's what you do as a family. That's what you guys have done for your child, your children. That's what it's what we do. So
but back to that irony, like the soup bowl, just struggling. She struggles to carry a glass with the beverage in it, but she can sit down the piano and play piano beautifully. So it's like just such a slight change. What's that?
I said, she plays it so gracefully, like it's beautiful. She does such an amazing job.
Yes. But if you saw her trying to pour something into a cup, it's painful. It's actually, it's, because I'm mentally willing her hands to just settle and pour, and she's all over the place. And it's like, but yet she can sit down and like, just the brain, the workings of the brain, it's like she has great higher level brain function, like does very well academically, AP classes, straight A's, but like we'll need just cues for basic things around the house, like and I'm like, Ellie, I shouldn't have to tell you this, and then I beat myself up for being impatient. I get frustrated that I lost my patience with her when it's like, I know she has some cognitive, brain, but it's hard, it's hard.
And you really question, is this every parent go through this? Is it just us? Is this the disability? Is this who they would be anyway?
Is this what a teenager is just like,
they are.
I think we're so critical. Yeah, exactly. But I think from the get-go, we've all had to be so hypercritical of our children when you're looking for these littlest of growth. So these littlest of attributes, you don't get away from that, so you still are always ultra critical. And, sometimes that critical comes off as being frustrated or being grumpy or grouchy or this or that, when in reality, it's just you're concerned and you want them to keep progressing.
Yeah. So I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about marriage. So I read I was reading some of the articles, and it talks about how it says couples who have children with special needs often report low marriage satisfaction. Fathers can be overwhelmed with the challenges that come with raising a child with special needs. This anxiety can sometimes cause fathers to become less involved in their child's life. Encouraging fathers to become involved in both the physical and emotional care of their children can help strengthen and parent and child bond and improve the child development. Raising children with developmental, emotional, behavioral, or medical special needs impacts a marriage. The impact is determined by the manner in which the couple handles intensive child-rearing demands and related stressors. Juggling the seemingly endless logistical and emotional issues associated with parenting children with special needs can cause couples to make the relationship much less of a priority. The couples that do well under these circumstances are those who find the ways to stay connected to each other. So I know, like for Jesse and I, we've always worked it as a team, and I always find, they say having a child with special needs either, makes you or breaks you, but I always say to him, it's bonded us like no other, and it's so tragic to see those families that don't make it, so having a child alone changes the dynamic anyway, of a marriage, but having a child with a disability brings it to another whole, part of the marriage. And I'm grateful. And I just have to say too, I didn't know you guys while Ellie was growing up, but just from the short time that I have had interactions with you, Ryan, you were definitely a hands-on father, and you remind me a lot of my husband too, and he was always there, I knew I was never alone, if I was having a rough time, or, he was there for the diaper changing, he was there for feeding, he was, if I was just wanted to scream or just walk away, or, there were times where we might have bickered, but we never fought, and we never, we always just kind of leaned on one another, if you will. How did it change you? Do you find it brought you guys closer? How was your dynamic between the two of you guys? I know that was a lot.
Well, you really took you really kind of took the words out of my mouth. Like everything you said about Jesse, I can say about Ryan from day one. And I recognized that within days. I'm like, I am so blessed to have Ryan, because there are many, many guys who would just be like, I'm not down for this.
Yep.
But Ryan was hands-on, cleaning, he would, when she was being tube fed, he would like get up at night to handle that so I could sleep, changing diapers, all that, participating in her therapies, doing, fun things with her. So the fact to have so much support from him, made it bearable for me, to get through
it.
the scary times, the unknown times. I think we've, like you said, leaned on each other. We've always leaned on each other. There are times when Ryan's been frustrated or I've been frustrated, and we take over, like, all right, I'm in, like, tag, you're it. It's like, so, and we can read that. And
sometimes it's not tag, you're it. Sometimes it's like, I can remember one instance in particular, and, being a special educator, you're around students who have a multitude of disabilities throughout the day. And we had planned before Ellie was born that Kim was going to take her, she was going to stay home. We co-taught together. So Kim and I have taught together in the same classroom for 5 years prior to having Ellie. But I can remember coming home from school and still having my work bag and everything on, and her standing at the top of the stairs and just holding the baby, like, here you go, you're on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not even in the front door. I'm on the front stoop. I have my bag here, and you're throwing this child down 3 stairs at me, And I'm like, oh, how was your day, honey? And I can remember just even before that, it'd be weekends, and just like going into the bathroom and turning the shower on so you wouldn't hear a cry, because Ellie would cry and scream
incessantly.
So that was something that, and we would take 8 showers a day just because you could be in there and not listen to the crying, and just to get a little bit of, if it was, too bad outside. But I think it just that focus on the family and knowing that, it's kind of what, that's how I view myself. I don't view I'm a dad. I'm a family. That's who we are. And it's all about that priority. It's kind of what you wanted to do in life. When people said, oh, I wanted to be this, I wanted to be that, I wanted to be a dad and a family, you know what I mean? And that's kind of, the job's important. Yeah. All the other stuff's, kind of makes me up too, but that's the importance of it. And, people at school would, I feel sorry. Yeah. You have to go home. I don't feel sorry. Like, I'm happy that I get to do that. I'm joyful that I get to go home, and, it might not be what you deal with at home. You know what I mean? And, no, I'm not making it to the happy hour. I'm not making it to happy hours, guys. And no, I'm not going to be doing this, that, or the other thing, but that's all right, because my priority is somewhere else.
Right. I have to share a little story now too. And then I want to go into what your words are. But so Jesse, when I was on bed rest for 42 days in the hospital with Faith, and so JD was diagnosed with a mild form of CP, and he was up on his toes a lot. Well, Jesse used to race BMX bikes. So when the track reopened, he started taking him down there, and he learned to ride a bike. What was he? Three, I think. So he took him down to the track. Well, later on, after, Faith was home, those guys started racing and stuff, right? Well, he ended up breaking his arm, or was it your wrist?
My wrist. I almost said something about this when we were talking about the diapers.
And he knew. I didn't even have to ask. He knew. He put a sock over that cast so he could hold her.
I cut a hole in it for the fingers so I could do the diapers. And if I got a mess on me, I could pull the sock off and wash the sock. But I was not getting away with that. But when I broke it on a Saturday. I didn't go. It's not broken. It is not broken until Monday. And then it started changing colors.
Man.
Yeah, we'll have to go to the doctor.
Yep,
I did not want it to be broken.
But he still didn't get out of
Stubborn.
it. No way, no how.
I had a job to do. So.
Well, I just want to thank you, men, because, you guys have been amazing.
Amazing. I second that.
Yes. So but back in 2019, I ended up starting my own business called My Intent Maker, Karen Guilbault. And I had gotten a gift from one of my senior directors. And you choose a word, and then you get it hand stamped and put on a bracelet. So we were going back and forth with words and everything. So since then, when I started to start the show, I wanted to gift all of the guests with a token with their word and put it on, either a bracelet or whatever. And words are so meaningful and they're so powerful. And, we're so inundated with all the craziness going around in the world, and also too, it seems like it brings up meaningful conversation. So with the way the social media is today in this world, and it's like everybody's texting or on their phones or Facebook or Instagram, and they're not having like face-to-face meaningful conversations, and that's kind of how that had come about. And it's a conversation piece too, to start with other people. Oh, what's your bracelet say? And then you get them talking about your word and why it's meaningful to you. And there's so much meaning. There was people. Just for example, I'll do a few examples. One, there was a gentleman, and I was watching the YouTube video on it. He chose the word. Oh my gosh! And now my mind is gonna totally go blank because he had a number like 7. He had a number, and the reason why was because he was 7 years sober. It can mean so many different things to different people. I wanted to either choose focus or enough, for you or enough, and he told me, he's like, I think you should choose focus because when you focus, you do amazing things. I'm like, oh, so I kept that word focus, and let me tell you, I put that bracelet on because I've been wanting to start a show like this for so long. I'm like, I need to focus. I need to get it up and going and off the ground. It can help so many people that want to listen. I rarely see any podcasts or YouTube shows, about this kind of stuff. So I said, I'm going for it. And Faith had chose Fearless. She wanted one, and she said that she chose Fearless because that's how she has to live every day for life to overcome her struggles. So I just think words are very important. So I had emailed you guys, so if you guys would share what words you chose and why.
I chose grateful. There's so much to be grateful for, from having an involved dad and husband. Grateful for what progress Ellie made, just defying all what prognoses that we were faced with, and just grateful where she's going to go with that, because she's really passionate about disability advocacy. Mm-hmm. And she's going to go on to do a disability awareness and pride walk in July, I'd mentioned to you before. So at the time, there have been times, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. There have been times it's been, why us? Why did we have to go? Why did my child have to suffer? Why does she have to go through so much? And you start doing, the comparisons, and just, watching healthy children run across the playground that without a limp, and feeling a sense of longing and loss and grief of that. I have felt all those things,
Mm-hmm.
but I remind myself how grateful I am too of what she's doing. And her purpose is different. Her purpose isn't, to be the star athlete running across the playground, but she's going to bring awareness and compassion toward people with disabilities. And I really feel like, God planned her that way. And before but the week leading up to having Ellie, like, I would read out of my Bible every day. And I just happened to be reading the book of Acts. And then Ellie was born. A week later, I pick up my Bible again. I'm like, I did not seek out any particular scripture. I didn't look for anything of comfort. I just picked up where my bookmark was. Mm-hmm. And what I picked up was, it was in the book of Acts, chapter 3, was the next place I'd left off of. The day I'd had her, I'd finished chapter 2. And chapter 3 is Peter heals the crippled beggar. And it's about a beggar at the gate, and he was crippled out. If I could read.
No, absolutely. Please do.
Now a man crippled from birth was being carried to the temple gate called Beautiful, where he was put every day to beg from those going into the temple courts. When he saw Peter and John about to enter, he asked them for money. Peter looked straight at him, as did John. Then Peter said, "Look at us." So the man gave them his attention, expecting to get something from them. Then Peter said, "Silver or gold I do not have, but what I have I give you. In the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, walk." Taking him by the right hand, he helped him up, and instantly the man's feet and ankles became strong. He jumped to his feet and began to walk. Then he went with them into the temple courts, walking and jumping and praising God. When all the people saw him walking and praising God, they recognized him as the same man who used to sit begging at the temple gate. and they were filled with wonder and amazement at what had happened to him. So this is like the place where I had left off and picked up. And I'm like, wow, there's a miracle for Ellie. And I felt God's tangible presence at that point, that she was going to be okay. And so I'm grateful for that. Are there times I'm like, I just wish it were easier and I didn't have to worry and fret? And absolutely. But I'm grateful for a higher purpose that she's called for.
To do.
And just, when I picked up right there, because they're being told our child may never walk, so I felt like it was such a coincidence, but it wasn't. Like God was told me, because I just picked the book of Acts at random. I'll just start here. And, it started earlier in the week. Yeah. So my heart is grateful for all she has overcome, what she's going to do. And I try not to beat myself up too much. And I give myself some grace when I feel like I'm being ungrateful. Yeah.
Well, I love
That's that.
Thank you for sharing that. I love that. And how about you, Ryan?
Well, this has brought a little bit of contention in because, when you emailed last weekend and I was supposed to have a word like that night, I'm a little bit more delayed. I'm a little more, I want to go through. I'm looking through words. I'm like, yeah, I might have 4 or 5 words before. I need to email Karen right now. So I'm like, oh my gosh, so.
And that was that's so funny. Go ahead.
I give her the word and she said today, I'm not sure that's going to fit on the circle. And I'm like, I got to get a new word. Come on now.
Calendar.
That's why I was like, it's fine.
Like, this is about a little bit of I'm always a little bit behind in what I need to do. But when this was so finally when I gave her the word, I chose the word unconditional because there were a lot of words that kind of fit there. But it's that unconditional love that I had and Kimberly has for me, I have for her. Before we were married, before we, were married, before we had children, it's that unconditional love and putting each other first. And when you have a child, you put your child, that's just that unconditional love I have for my wife. She has for me, she has for our children, our community, and that's what God has for us, that unconditional love. And why, am I worthy of that? I think we're all worthy of each other's love. And I wish there was more of it. But it's that unconditional, and it's a lot of different methods. That unconditional love of however this turns out. You're gonna have my love. You're gonna have my friendship. My children are gonna have me for what I can do for them, what I can give them and provide for them. But I think it's more than just a word. It's the demonstration of that. You know what I mean? A lot of people can pick words, and they just are words. But when you can kind of live it, see it, those kind of things. And I remember just going through, and you look at my search history there. There's, what words that describe, I'm like, and so I came across unconditional, and I'm like, that is a big word, but, and I'm a guy of little words. I don't use big words because I use them inappropriately all the time. Like, I think I'm
you're doing better, huh?
Yeah, I know, but I try to use the simple words as I can. But that one right there just kind of hit it on the head, and I'm like, I'm there.
Yep. And that will fit because it can get 14 letters to a token. And guess what? It's 14 letters. So I just have to make sure I I'm really close.
I was like, all right, we got to get it. But I think that's what it is. And I think it's been the unconditional support of our family, our friends, our faith, our, the people at church, our direct families, our extended families, our friends. Everybody has been involved. Everybody has really, what can we do to help? And when you see that, not just around your own child, but that it's just, we're all broken people, but we're all powerful people. We are all worthy of that. And having that unconditional love is important. And I think for where we are with our families, we wouldn't be here without that support of each other. And you wouldn't be, doing these wonderful things with a podcast. And you and Jesse wouldn't be a great example without each other and without some of what we've gone through. Like Jesse said earlier, to give people hope, to give people those that light at the end of the tunnel, because it can be dark, and we've all had our dark days. You want to throw your hands up and just be like, all right, it is what it is, and this is where we level off, but you keep on climbing.
Yeah. That's why I say it takes a village, and it's so true. And that was another thing. So if when I share these podcasts and the YouTube show, the best thing that you can do is just keep sharing away, get this out to as many people as you want to. But if folks want to support us on a higher level, I put together a fundraising page, and in any amount of donation that people make, I'm going to hand stamp the word village on it. And I'm going to go ahead and send that to them in appreciation, because it really does take a village, and like you say, how many people have supported you. These people growing up, and everybody, between the therapies and the hospitals and everywhere else, they are your life. They are your village. They have poured into you. They have been there for you. They have lived this journey and supported this journey with you. So it's like, we'll be, and again, grateful. We're so grateful for those that have come up and have helped us. I talked to some of her therapists and stuff that when she was younger, and it doesn't matter, even if I haven't seen you in a while, you're still your family. Like we hold them close to our heart, because they really have helped us. Yeah. And really, you can see, if they weren't there and did what they did for our kids, they wouldn't be where they are. Even teachers, like Southampton has been, that was the best thing that ever happened to her when we moved here. You know what I mean? I can't even say enough about Southampton. Yeah. But it's awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. Jesse, did you have any last words?
No, I just this was a wonderful conversation, and I know that you two ladies thanked us fathers, but I want to thank you guys as the backbone that you Absolutely. Have been through this. Not only the struggle, but the progress and the lives that we're living, and that you're here with us and to share this.
Oh, thank you. Aww. Well, thank you.
Yeah. And that, I don't know about you, Jesse, but Kimberly is our organizer. She is the one. She gave up her career. She raised Ellie when I was at work, and we did it together, but a lot of that fell on. And so, when Ellie was in school or going to the book story times and seeing those other kids able to do something that your child couldn't do, I know it can be hurtful. It can be, but Ellie's where she is because of my wife, because of us, but a lot of because of what Kimberly did and gave up. And you're right. And I think we're able to be strong men because we have strong wives and strong women who were able to hold that down in times of storm and trouble. So I absolutely agree with that.
Well, thank you, honey. Well, on that note, thank you everybody for listening and watching. And please join us in another episode, because we're not done with the Andreen family. We are going to be interviewing their daughter, Ellie, and then also their daughter, Faith. So just stay tuned. And thanks again, everybody. Have a good night. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining us as we spread awareness through our personal stories and the many resources shared. You can help us by joining our village simply by sharing our show to the masses. If you would like to support the Guilbault Girls on another level, click on the link in the show notes to make a donation in any amount. Add your address and you'll receive a hand-stamped token with the word village on it in appreciation. Be sure to subscribe to our Guilbault Girls podcast and YouTube show, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Guilbault Girls. Till next time.